Good evening and welcome to this 1 hour special edition of the Left, Right and Centre with me, Sanket Upadhyay. 3 stories that we are going to track over the next 60 minutes. And while every other broadcasting station is going to begin with something political or the other, we think that it is our moral duty to begin with what is the most important story. How far are we in India from a vaccine? As the world starts COVID inoculation drive, India is gearing up for vaccines. But how far are we? Realistically, when can we start the process? We're about to enter a new year. How soon can this inoculation drive be completed? A lot of unknown questions, begging answers. Everything you need to know about India and vaccines coming up first. Story number 2, there are templated political face-offs taking place. But amid all of that, the farmers' government impasse has completed 1 month. This standoff with farmers has resulted in a templated fight. The Congress has marched to the Rashtrapati Bhavan, which was halted. All sorts of things happened. And Rahul Gandhi, in that press conference right outside Rashtrapati Bhavan, said, India does not have democracy. Now juxtapose this with the too much democracy comment. So a democracy debate is going to come up in just a short moment from now. And story number 3, and this is going to have far-reaching consequences. Cain and the retrospective tax fix. All you need to know about this retrospective tax, this entire case, and what India plans to do next. So these 3 stories over the next 60 minutes. Let's first begin with topic number 1, the most important, on how far are we realistically from a vaccine. I want to introduce our guest this evening, Dr. S.K. Sareen, Director of ILBS and Chairman, Delhi Government's panel on COVID-19. Professor Dr. Anita Ramesh, Specialist in Clinical Trials, is also with us. Thank you very much, Professor Ramesh. And Dr. T.P. Lahane, Director of the Medical Education and Research in Maharashtra. Thank you to the 3 of you. Let me ask this question of all of you one by one. So we'll begin with you, Dr. Sareen. Realistically speaking, where are we as far as vaccines are concerned?
I think we are ahead of time. We have at least 2 which are already shooting down. The Pfizer vaccine has already touched more than 150,000 jabs in the US, and Moderna is also rolling. The third vaccine, the one AstraZeneca, the one India is likely to have with Serum Institute, is also likely to get approval in the UK by 28th or 29th of December. So I think Christmas has brought cheers to us, and many more are likely to come within next, I think, a month or 2. It's only now, how are you able to get these vaccines to the people? The access, the volunteers are ready to take the vaccine, and the people have many fears in their mind, which I hope we can shed them out. But we are, as far as vaccines are concerned, we are, I think, ahead of time and doing fairly well.
Yes, Professor Ramesh, see, the point is, when you compare this with the world, I've got these figures. US has already vaccinated about 1 million people. In China, 1 million have been vaccinated. UK, 500,000. Russia, about 2 lakh. Israel, 71,000. And the list goes on and on. I'm quoting these figures from Our World in Data. We are yet to start the process. Do you think that we are, as Dr. Sareen says, we should actually be subscribing in this philosophy of being ahead of time? Would you also join Dr. Sareen in his optimism? How do you look at these figures and our position as of this moment?
Yes, a very pertinent question at this point of time. Now, if you see, these vaccines were manufactured, Pfizer in US and Oxford AstraZeneca in UK, and the Sputnik in Russia and the Chinese vaccine. They're all out of the country. India has only the collaboration with Bharat Biotech, collaboration with Serum Institute for Oxford and Bharat Biotech Covaxin. But if you consider India, till none of the vaccines has got any approval for vaccinating the mass. That holds today. Neither the Pfizer, nor the Oxford, nor the Covaxin, nor the Covishield. So as on today, we do not have approval. We cannot vaccinate until and unless solid data has been submitted to DCGI, then only we can. I am hoping only next year, but I would say India, we are behind time. Because where the other countries have started vaccinating, we have not. We are waiting, and we are going to do well. India has done well as far as vaccines is concerned, but our vaccination might start a month later in the new year.
Sure.
As my other colleague has said, we have to be optimistic because India will do well.
Dr. Lahane, you've heard the views of the two honorable panelists. Now, the point is, this is no race. It may be made to appear like a race, that this one has started first, this one started Saturday, the other one started Friday. It's not really a race. We're talking about human beings here and a massive inoculation drive, right? It's more important to be correct and not be hasty. Take the right decision. So in that context, do you feel that the Drug Controller Authority taking time is actually right? Studying data. We have a huge population.
Yes, you are correct. See, this is not a race, and we should not be, create any race such type of thing. See, the Drug Controller of India is taking time because there are 6 trials going on in India, and in that the drug control is taking time. That phase 3 trials, when it completes, after that, what are the complications? Because we also hear that there are complications, facial palsy or neurological complications happen in England. So we should not be haphazard, one. Secondly, unless and until we are totally safe, because this India, the population is too much, and in such situation, we should be totally, I think, when we are safe, that time only we should go for the immunization. So we are not behind any country. And why I will tell you, because in those countries, the disease was 3 months before us, and our disease came after 3 months. So I think we are definitely in the we will be ready in the month of January for the vaccination.
Sure. Dr. Sareen, I want to come back to you now. See, there are a lot of vaccine candidates under consideration. Even in the UK, if you speak to NHS experts, they will tell you that while you've got the Pfizer vaccine, which is being given out for the purposes of emergency to, say, the NHS staff, to the elderly, the large-scale vaccination is going to take place. There'll be another candidate for that, because it's very difficult for this Pfizer vaccine to be a mass vaccine, at least as of this moment. In the Indian context, more so, because it requires certain facilities. In the Indian context, Dr. Sareen, which of the vaccine candidates under consideration do you think will be the mass vaccine, which will be, there at each and every nook and cranny of the country?
So for the next few months, it will probably be the Serum Institute AstraZeneca. Why we are ahead of time in the sense that UK hasn't given the approval for AstraZeneca. This will become their backbone because it's a Oxford vaccine, it is the UK vaccine. And the major vaccine likely to be in the UK and maybe in Europe could be this. And India is already ready with it, and once they give, because the major portion of the testing volunteers are in UK. So once that authority in UK gives an approval to AstraZeneca, I think it will be easier and also safer for Indians to take this AstraZeneca and the Serum Institute vaccine. And this vaccine has, of course, the advantage. It doesn't require -70 or -20 freezers, which the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines require. This can be stored at normal refrigerators, and we are ready with probably very large dosage, and this will probably the vaccine. This vaccine has also the advantage that it uses both the cells. What is a vaccine? Vaccine is actually a mimic. It's a dummy of a virus to protect. So once you give that dummy, whether it is a protein or it is a gene, once it goes, it will go into the T cell, which is your main sensor, and the B cell, which makes the antibody. So this vaccine, the one which Serum Institute vaccine, will probably affect both the T cell and the B cell, and there is enough data published. And I think this vaccine will give adequate amount of antibody.
While I agree with that, Dr. Sareen, but Professor Ramesh, I want to ask you this question. Many, like Dr. Sareen, even the government, you listen to the health minister, he says vaccination may begin in January. All of this we are saying at a time when the drug controller is still analyzing data for emergency use, right? So that process is still on. And the process is not complete. So we do not know even now. So on what basis is this confidence that it will begin in January coming from?
Yes, just one more point which I want to mention before I want to go to your next question. You asked a question regarding Pfizer. There is a particular section of the society in India which might benefit from the Pfizer vaccine. Remember one thing, it's not one vaccine. We need multiple vaccines, different mode of action. So Pfizer vaccine can be used on an emergency basis in India, particularly to the urban
but
population.
Do we have the facilities?
And the tertiary. Yeah, tertiary hospitals were -70 and it can be given to only a limited group of people. And please avoid in patients who have high allergic reaction, because lot of allergies has been reported with this Pfizer vaccine. So a small section of Indian society can be benefited, urban or who needs it on an emergency basis. Coming to your next question regarding, yes, what I understand from DCGI, because I do a lot of trials in India, unless and until I provide enough data of safety, immunogenicity and authentic data to DCGI, the drug controller will not be able to take a decision. So as much as I know, the vaccine companies has to provide phase 3 data in total, including safety, then only the drug controller can. So the companies have not provided, as much as I know in the last meeting.
And by that logic, Dr. Sareen, you being hopeful is only hope that the vaccine will be there in January. Because we do not have the complete data, and only post that data, the drug controller is going to study the data and take an informed opinion like it should.
There is no doubt about what Dr. Ramesh says, but since a company has applied in UK and the UK regulator is listening to that, that is the process on 28th, that's Monday or Tuesday. If you have a listening, means that AstraZeneca 45,000 large number population data is available.
Sure.
And if that data is valid enough, and if they get a permission in UK, which is quite likely,
sure,
then it will be easier. Indian cohort is very small. So I think if they get it, at least we are assured this vaccine has proven the test of time. But yes, I agree, DCGI has to take a call, their expert committee has to take a call. But the advantage of that is, once we are on, once we have safety, we can go on very fast.
Okay.
And 2 more points, just briefly about Moderna. The vaccine which got the recent approval has an advantage that it works very well till 70, 75 years of age. So the advantage is that a small proportion of people who are high risk, or maybe they can afford, elderly people and others, can get either of these vaccines if they can import it or get their hands on. So I think we are in good space as far as vaccine, but next 2 weeks we should have a very clear path.
Next 2 weeks we should have a clear path. Let's go by these words and hope for the best, because we have already prepared for the worst. The 2020 was as bad as it could possibly get. Let's hope 21 brings cheer. Thank you so much.
And I think,
yeah, I've run out of time, Dr. Ramesh, but thank you so much for joining us. We'll discuss this in greater detail as we go along. Plenty of opportunities to do that. Dr. Sareen, Professor Ramesh, as well as Dr. Lahane, thank you so much for being part of this crucial discussion. All right, story number 2 is the politics of the farm protests. We are asking some very basic questions. First of all, Rahul Gandhi has kickstarted a whole new debate where he says India has no democracy. Now, obviously, this will lead to a tutu meme. He will give his version. There will be a counter version. But the larger point that we want to raise over here is this. You've got politics going on in Delhi, pretty templated form of politics, right? Between the Congress, BJP, opposition, government, claim, counterclaim, punch, counterpunch. What does all of this have to do? What do these templated face-offs have to do with the farmers protesting, and that protest will complete a month tomorrow? Let's listen in to some reactions that came in through the day.
प्रधानमंत्री जी से कहना चाहता हूं कि ये किसान हटेगा नहीं। प्रधानमंत्री को ये नहीं सोचना चाहिए कि किसान और मजदूर घर चले जाएंगे, नहीं जाएंगे। हम 3 लोग राष्ट्रपति के पास गए हैं, बट हम करोड़ों सिग्नेचर्स लेके गए। जो भी नरेंद्र मोदी जी के खिलाफ खड़े होते हैं, वो उनके बारे में कुछ ना कुछ गलत बोलते रहते हैं। किसान खड़े हो जाएंगे तो किसान को आतंकवादी बोलेंगे। द प्राइम मिनिस्टर इज डूइंग दिस because he wants to help 2 or 3 business people. He does not care what happens to these people. We are saying that in India where you have destroyed the agricultural system will not function. प्रधानमंत्री को ये नहीं सोचना चाहिए कि किसान और मजदूर घर चले जाएंगे, नहीं जाएंगे जब तक ये कानून वापस नहीं लिया जाएगा। जॉइंट सेशन कीजिए और कानून को एकदम वापस लीजिए, क्योंकि किसान वापस नहीं जाने वाला है। जो भी नरेंद्र मोदी जी के खिलाफ खड़े होते हैं वो उनके बारे में कुछ ना कुछ गलत बोलते रहते हैं। किसान खड़े हो जाएंगे तो किसान को आतंकवादी बोलेंगे, मजदूर खड़े हो जाएंगे तो मजदूर को आतंकवादी बोलेंगे। एक दिन अगर मोहन भगवत खड़े हो गए तो कहेंगे ये भी आतंकवादी है। मतलब जो भी नरेंद्र मोदी जी से सत्ता लेने की कोशिश करेगा वो आतंकवादी है।
देखिए, राहुल गांधी जो कुछ बोलते हैं उसको कांग्रेस भी गंभीरता से नहीं लेती। देश का तो सवाल ही नहीं उठता है।
लेकिन आज राष्ट्रपति
और आज वो जब राष्ट्रपति महोदय के पास विरोध व्यक्त करने के लिए गए तो मुझे ये सब किसान खड़े हुए हैं, मैंने इनसे पूछा तो उन्होंने कहा कोई दस्तखत कराने नहीं आया कांग्रेस का आदमी और किसी किसान ने दस्तखत नहीं किए।
Okay, let's first discuss the farmers. What does this bickering that has happened, or this face-off, punch counter punch that is happening between Congress and BJP, what does this have to do with the farmers? Let me first introduce our 3 guests tonight. Shiv Kumar Kakka ji, you're the president of the Rashtriya Kisan Mazdoor Mahasangh, also negotiating on behalf of the farmers, part of the delegation. Ram Kumar Walia, president of the Indian Kisan Union and also a leader of the Bharatiya Janata Party. Thank you very much. And we have Dr. M.J. Khan, chairman of the Indian Chamber of Food and Agriculture. मैं सबसे पहले कक्का जी आपसे शुरू करना चाहता हूँ। ये दिल्ली में डेमोक्रेसी, लोकतंत्र खत्म हो रहा है और ये हो रहा है और मोहन भागवत आतंकवादी घोषित कर दिए जाएंगे और राहुल गांधी जो हैं वो फर्जी साइन लेकर के आ रहे हैं, ये सारी बातें अभी चल रही हैं। लेकिन मुझे नहीं लगता कि इसमें से कोई भी बात इस चीज पर केंद्रित है या इस पर जिक्र कर रही है कि किसान को अब 1 महीना होने जा रहा है धरना देते।
किसान की समस्या पर केंद्रित नहीं होना चाहते। ये पूरे 30 दिन का घटना यही है कि मुद्दे से बात को अलग करना है। मामला किसानों का है, 3 कानून का है, एमएसपी का है, उस पर गंभीरता से चर्चा ना करते हुए ये सारी बातें होंगी आतंकवादी, खालिस्तानी और फर्जी किसान, असली किसान, इस कांग्रेस, बीजेपी, अभी जो बहस सबकी चलेगी इसमें देखिए अभी बीजेपी कांग्रेस दिखाई देगी आपको, किसान का मुद्दा उसमें गायब होने लगता है। तो मेरा महानुभावों से निवेदन है, प्रार्थना है कि इसको आप भाजपा, कांग्रेस और तमाम चीजों पर ना देखते हुए जो बिंदु हमारा मुद्दे का है कि कड़कती ठंड में 30 दिन से किसान पड़ा हुआ है, आत्मा हिल जाती है देखकर वहां पर जब लोग घूमते हैं कि किसान कैसे हो रहे हैं। 32 किसान शहीद हो गए हैं, कुछ किसान बीमार अस्पताल में भर्ती हो गए हैं। इस पर कोई चर्चा नहीं होगी। चर्चा यही होगी कि वो फर्जी किसान थे। राहुल गांधी ने क्या कहा, अरे किसने क्या कहा छोड़िए आप, 30 दिन में सरकार ने क्या प्रयास किया।
बिल्कुल
मेन
मुद्दा तो यही है, लेकिन मेन मुद्दा से हट करके अलग अलग किस्म की बातें हो रही हैं और अभी वो मुझे क्योंकि बात ऐसी बोल दी है कि उस पर प्रतिक्रिया लेनी पड़ेगी। मैं आपके पास आना चाहता हूं राम कुमार वालिया जी, आप किस तरीके से जवाब देंगे कक्का जी का? राम कुमार वालिया जी, आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है? Okay, we'll go back to Ram Kumar Walia in just a short moment. Pawan Kheda, spokesperson of the Congress party, is now also with us. Before I come to you, Mr. Kheda, let me also get in a view from Dr. M.J. Khan. Dr. Khan, you know, the problem over here and the stalemate has to do with the farmers not accepting the demands and not accepting the proposal that the government has presented. They feel that this proposal, they don't trust the proposal as of this moment. Realistically speaking, you tell me, what's the way forward?
I think there has got to be some flexibility from both the sides. If I put last 6 months period into 2 parts, I must admit that the first 3 months, the government was not flexible. government was convinced that these legislations are very beneficial to the farmers, something which the nation was looking forward for a long time. Finally, this government could do it. And therefore, the government was busy in explaining the benefits, and the farmers had very limited demands. But government was not flexible even to listen to those demands, being convinced that these legislation are going to be extremely useful. Now, the last 3 months, government is flexible, the farmers are not. So the stalemate is government one by one is asking for, please tell me, what are your reservations, where the problems are. So let us look at amending it.
Sure.
So the demand of scrapping 3 legislations which have come into effect after 20 years of each and every expert committee that has been formed has recommended almost exactly the same, including the Chief Minister Huda committee. So if that is the situation, now farmers are not only these 3 state farmers who are protesting today, but 28 other state farmers. So government has to look into or take into account the interests of each segment of the farmers. For example, the farmers associated with farmers producer organizations, or the agri-entrepreneurs, or agri-clinic and agri-business, that network of 30,000 institutions, and each has 1,000 farmers. So these are the farmers who are looking forward to benefit from these legislations. So therefore, scrapping them altogether is not going to serve anybody's purpose. What is required is that where there are reservations, there are objections, there are problems, let it be understood. So government today has issued another set of invitation to 38 farmers, or I think 40 farmers, inviting them, please tell me where you want to hold the discussion, what dates. This kind of flexibility now the government is showing. So therefore, it is incumbent upon all right-thinking people and farmers, brothers particularly, that they should come forward, so some flexibility.
Okay, so I'll get a response from Kakkaji also on what you are saying, but Pawan Kheda is now with us, and so is Mr. Walia, I am being told. But Mr. Kheda, and PKD Nambiar is a political analyst, supports the BJP. Thank you very much to all of you. Pawan Kheda, through the course of what the tall Congress leader Rahul Gandhi was saying outside the Rashtrapati Bhavan, he said that India is not a democracy. Would you like to elaborate? Because I hope you realize that this is a politically explosive statement, a statement that will take away the discussion from the farmers and focus it on this statement that has been made. In what context and how do you explain this?
Sanket, what's happening with the farmers of India is exactly what happened with a lot of other groups, Bhima Koregaon. Anybody who protests against this government will meet the same fate, same abuse, same certificates, same labels. Democracy is not just having an election, winning or losing an election. It's much more than that. In fact, democracy starts with an election. It doesn't end with an election. For Mr. Modi, it begins and ends with an election. लोकतंत्र सिर्फ चुनाव से शुरू और वहीं खत्म हो जाए वो लोकतंत्र नहीं होता है. लोकतंत्र तो चुनाव से शुरू होता है और वो 5 साल तक आप कैसे उसको मजबूती देते हो, संवैधानिक संस्थाओं को कैसे रखते हो, that's democracy. Do you see in the last 7 years, please tell me the health of our democratic institutions, do you think these are very healthy? Do you think they are robust and dynamic? Do you think they are performing their duties well? If you think so, let's have a debate on that.
Sure.
So what Rahul Gandhi said is absolutely right.
Okay.
Just elections is not democracy.
Okay. And Mr. Tomar has responded to that, saying that you got fake letters with fake signatures. So I'll get a response from you.
This is the way they are.
Sure.
This is the mentality they have.
Okay.
Everything about them is fake. So I mean, I can't even talk to them about signatures of fake or not. This is the mindset you are dealing with, and you say it's a democracy.
Okay.
इनको किसान भी फेक नजर आते हैं, इनको उनके साइन भी फेक नजर आते हैं, खालिस्तानी नजर आते हैं किसानों के नाम पे. इनसे क्या मैं बहस करूंगा कि फेक है या
PKD Nambiar.
ये तो खुद ही फेक लोग हैं.
PKD Nambiar, would you like to respond? The Congress has defended its democracy comment, that there is no democracy.
Well, Sanket, it's when a Pawan Khera, a Congress representative, is teaching, and Rahul Gandhi, the preaching about the democracy itself, is mocking him. They're on their own face. Everybody knows in this world that the only time in this country when the democracy was brutally kept in the shut for everybody's by the Congress during the emergency. I think any Congress representative in any TV show, whenever they talk about democracy, I can only say that one should
Sure,
not be
the
even
point on emergency,
give any kind
fine.
of a response to it. Yes,
So
there is no
that's point
response to
number
be
one.
given for
And
that comment.
no,
The
he's
second
spoken about
number
Mohan
for-
Bhagwat also. He says that today, if Mohan Bhagwat goes against Modi, he'll also be declared a terrorist.
I'll tell you.
I want to know your
I-
response to the democracy comment.
See, I will tell you that Rahul Gandhi's politics is divided into two parts. One, before he is going for a holiday. Second is once he comes back in the after the holiday period. Whenever he comes and before going, he will come and give some kind of a statement, which I think in a serious democracy, one should not be taking it even for. We don't want a opposition leader like Rahul Gandhi who just do politics before and going and after the holiday time is not what we wanted from an opposition party like Congress. I think he is trying to be politically relevant at this particular time. And I can only ask Mr. Pawan Khera, what is the definition of democracy according to Congress, what it has given in the last 70 years, and what is happening to democracy in the Modi era right now, where he is finding it so much of challenge, the democracy is not happening. I think the very question is that whether is Rahul Gandhi relevant in this Indian politics?
Okay.
Is the kind of politics what Rahul Gandhi is talking about?
Okay.
Is he really
Okay. I've understood your question. Let's give Mr. Kheda
Kheda
a right to reply. Mr. Kheda, you've heard the explanation. Your right to reply, please.
Sorry, thank you for waking me up because it was very sleep-inducing, this explanation. My friend, whatever little I could hear before I fell asleep, regular thing. Rahul Gandhi is irrelevant.
Because that is the problem of the Congress.
Irrelevant.
They always fall asleep.
Don't interrupt.
One by one, please.
Sanket,
Yes.
They are always sleeping. That is the problem with
Can
the
you ask
Congress.
him to just
Please
One
wake
by
up.
one, please.
Please.
This is exactly
Khera
how
ji,
the
please
farmers
wake
issue.
up.
This is exactly how the farmers issue gets hijacked. One moment. Yes.
Now,
नहीं
Sanket,
खेरा जी प्लीज वेक अप
अरे यार छोड़ो ना इनको समझाओ ना संकेत क्या
One
है?
by one.
हम समझा देंगे ना आपको समझा देंगे कैसे
क्या है?
जगाना है
Mr. Nambiar,
democracy
please,
में
one
कैसे
moment.
जाके रहना है
You will have to
Sanket,
listen to his right to reply
Sanket,
also. Yeah.
That Rahul Gandhi is irrelevant बताने के लिए सुबह से शाम तक सारे मंत्री आए जा रहे हैं इसमें चिल्ला कर बोल रहे हैं राहुल गांधी irrelevant है अरे भाई irrelevant क्यों लगाया 144 why did you impose section 144 if Rahul Gandhi is irrelevant why you even talking about him logic emergency yes I'll tell you what emergency was अरे अनाउंस किया था डिक्लेयर की थी और विड्रॉ भी की ये भी हिम्मत दिखाई विड्रॉ करने की आप तो बिना अनाउंस के जो डेमोक्रेसी की हालत कर रहे हैं वो देखिए ना वी डेफिनेटली यस कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट declared emergency, it withdrew emergency.
Do you think it
was
was a
not
mistake,
because of
Mr.
BJP,
Khera?
RSS
Do you think
No,
it
no,
was
one
a
moment,
mistake?
one moment. I'll have to come in here.
Yaar, please.
No, I'll have to come in
Sanket,
here
why don't
because
you
we are
ask
not
him
going to
if
talk
it's
about
possible?
emergency.
Bala
Let's
Sahab,
come
they
into
were
the
a
present.
mistake, Mr. Khera.
Please,
Indira Gandhi ko.
gentlemen,
Wait,
let's come into the
wait,
present.
wait,
Pawan
wait,
Khera, I have a question
wait,
for you.
wait, I have to finish.
Very
my
quickly.
sentence. Bala Sahab Devaras of the RSS is to write letters supporting emergency to Indira Gandhi and apologize. Here is Mr. Nambiar saying emergency lagai, हाँ हटाई भी थी.
Mr.
Okay,
Khera,
let's no, one moment. The issue is going to get diverted exactly what we don't want to happen to the Kisan.
Mr. Khera,
Pawan Khera.
Mr. Khera, my only humble question
Order,
is-
please. No discourse on emergency.
Stop interrupting.
The discourse around emergency has to stop at this moment, otherwise we'll lose focus.
Sanket, if this gentleman interrupts me again, I will not allow him to speak a single word.
No, one moment. I am asking you a question, Mr. Pawan Khera, and my question is that
democracy on your channel.
that
Look at democracy on your channel.
one
The
more, Mr.
opposition
Khera.
is not allowed
Now
to
time
speak.
for my question, Mr. Khera. Now is the
Not
time
being
for my
allowed to
question.
speak. This is the
Allow
level
me
of
to ask my
democracy
question.
being shown on your channel.
Mr. Khera, allow me to ask my question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Jagat Prakash Nadda, who is the president of the Bharatiya Janata Party, has just tweeted where he says किसानों को भ्रमित करने और उन्हें उनके अधिकारों से वंचित रखने वाली कांग्रेस का सच फिर उजागर हुआ। सोनिया गांधी पहले किसानों के लिए बिचौलिया मुक्त बाजार की वकालत करती थी और अब इसका विरोध करती हैं। And he's produced an old video clip. I'm sure you must have seen this video clip. It's doing the rounds on social media. How do you respond to this? See, because the problem or the doubt in the mind of a farmer right now is that we have political role reversals. Congress is talking like BJP and BJP is talking like Congress and nobody is talking about the Kisan.
Sanket, how do you manage and govern a country as vast and diverse as India? Through dialogue, through building a consensus, not through the way Modi ji and Mr. Shahenshah, Amit Shah does it. No, that's not the way. No doubt agriculture and agricultural trade needed a reform. Whether it's Kakkaji, whether all other leaders sitting here, everybody would agree that yes, reform was a must. We also tried to bring reform. It's a gradual process. You have to take the stakeholders into confidence. And if they had taken the stakeholders into confidence, on your show, Bharatiya Kisan Sangh representative told us, even they were not consulted. भैया किसको कंसल्ट किया था? आपस में ही 2-4 सेठों से बात करके हो गया.
No, I think the allegation is that you are opposing something which you yourself were advocating
Sanket, I think,
when you were in power.
Sanket, I think
No, one more. I have to get farmer representatives also now. We have heard explanations, political explanations. Mr. Walia is now back with us, I am being told. वालिया जी, मैं आपसे ये जानना चाहता हूं कि इन सब के बीच जो केंद्र कह रही है, जो कांग्रेस कह रही है, कहीं एक यूनियन आती है जो सरकार को समर्थन दे देती है, दूसरी तरफ कांग्रेस जो है वो पत्र लेकर के राष्ट्रपति के पास चले जाते हैं, इस सब के बीच में सॉल्यूशन कहां निकल रहा है, मुझे आप ये बताइए. 1 महीना होने जा रहा है, किसान बैठे हुए हैं.
देखिए, आज ये दुर्भाग्य की बात है, सरकार द्वारा जब एक ऐसा बिल लाया गया है जो किसानों को लाभ पहुंचाने वाला है, जिससे किसानों का भला होने वाला है, जिससे किसानों की दशा और दिशा में सुधार आने वाला है.
आपकी इस बात से वालिया जी, आप मुझे बताइए, आपकी इस बात से किसान इत्तेफाक क्यों नहीं रखते हैं, सिंगू बॉर्डर वाले? ये वाली बात को हम 1 महीने से सुन रहे हैं.
मेरी बात से बहुत किसान इत्तेफाक रखते हैं और मैं आपको बता दूं कि 28 तारीख को हम फिर एक मीटिंग करने जा रहे हैं और हो सकता है
I'm going to have to come back to Mr. Walia because Mr. Walia's audio is a bit of a problem. But Mr. Nambiar, would you like to respond, and then Kakkaji?
So I think there are two things what is happening in the farmers.
No, my question is very simply, if this bill or if this law is so good that you are rallying support after support of unions, why have you not been able to convince the farmers protesting in Singhu border?
Sanket, it is a true fact that there is a section of farmers, especially from 1 or 2 states, are protesting at the Singhu border or
section
elsewhere.
You've got farmers coming in from Maharashtra, Rajasthan.
I'll tell you. I will tell you. See, Sanket, my dear friend, there are 65 crore odd farmers in this country. All the 65 crore farmers are protesting. I hail from a state from Kerala. I don't think I'm coming from a family of the farming.
No, Mr. Nambiar, I mean,
I don't find people.
So you want 65 crore people to protest for you to realize that this is a problem.
People. I am not even talking about 65 crore, Sanket. It is not even 65 lakh farmers are not even protesting. There are some section of the farmers, even if they have a concern, it is the duty of the government to address that and solve that problem.
But has that happened?
It is important. It is important. But then the farmers who are protesting today is not even ready to talk. Earlier, if you really recall, in the same channel, we had a discussion. The initial challenge, the farmers were saying the MSP needs to be there. The government said that MSP will be there. The Prime Minister himself said that MSP will be there. Then they said that
I think we've discussed this over and over that the matter is all about trust. This is all about trust.
They were asking for the mandi should be available for them to sell their produce.
You see, we have spoken about this enough, Mr. Nambiar. We have discussed this threadbare. My only point is, why has this line of communication not delivered results? Ideally, it should have no.
So this is precisely the discussion, Sanket, when the government from the highest authorities are reaching out to the farmers day and day out. Why the farmers?
कक्का जी, आप बताइए, सरकार कह रही है, हम तो बार-बार अपील कर रहे हैं कि आप आइए, चर्चा करिए. आप ही हैं जो बात नहीं करना चाहते. रिजिड हो गए हैं आप, खान साहब कह रहे हैं. कक्का जी, शिव कुमार कक्का, कैन यू हियर मी? आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
आवाज बहुत कम आ रही
जी. मैं थोड़ा जोर से बोलूंगा. आप देखिए, जो सरकार के प्रतिनिधि हैं उनका ये कहना है आप चर्चा ही नहीं करना चाह रहे. आप पहले, सरकार बार बार आपसे कह रही है कि आओ बात करो, आप बात ही नहीं करना चाह रहे.
कौन कहता है हम बात नहीं करना चाहते? हम बात करना चाहते हैं. सरकार को सामान्य माहौल बनाना चाहिए बात करने का. सरकार हम पर लगातार आरोप लगाती रहेगी, तरह तरह के आरोप लगाती रहेगी, हमारे आंदोलनों को बांटती रहेगी, आंदोलनों के अंदर घुसपैठ करेगी, टर्म और कंडीशन के आधार पर चर्चाएं नहीं हो सकती हैं। पहले भी उन्होंने 4 पेज की चिट्ठी लिखी थी, अभी भी चिट्ठी लिखी है, तो उसमें लिखा हुआ है कि एमएसपी से 3 कानूनों का कोई संबंध नहीं है। ये लिखने की आवश्यकता क्या है और संबंध कैसे नहीं है? संबंध है तभी तो ये इतना बड़ा आंदोलन खड़ा हुआ है, क्योंकि तीनों कानूनों में समर्थन मूल्य पर हमारा फसल बिकेगी कि नहीं बिकेगी इसका कोई उल्लेख ही नहीं है।
ठीक है,
तो सारा काम 3 कानूनों में यही हुआ ना।
हाँ,
समर्थन मूल्य पर किसान की उपज कैसे बिकेगी, किसी भी कानून में, ना 1 में, ना 2 में, ना 3 में, तीनों कानून में उल्लेख नहीं है। तो फिर उन कानूनों का अर्थ क्या है?
श्योर।
केवल लिख के जब आप देने को तैयार हैं, प्रधानमंत्री हमारी गिरफ्तारी के बाद ट्वीट करते हैं कि समर्थन मूल्य पर हम गारंटी दे रहे हैं आपको, तो आपको फिर उसको कानून में बनाने में क्या हर्ज है? आप यहाँ आपकी मंशा पर शक होता है।
ठीक है, वालिया जी, आपने सुना है कक्का जी ने क्या बोला?
बनाने को
बड़े नेता हैं, इस बारे में जिक्र कर रहे हैं।
अगली आज पत्र मिला है, कल हमारी बैठक होगी
जिसमें आप चर्चा करेंगे
3 कानूनों का।
कल तो प्रधानमंत्री संबोधित भी करेंगे किसानों को, अब देखते हैं उसमें क्या होगा। हाँ
नहीं है।
मिस्टर वालिया, आपका रिस्पॉन्स
है? हमारी मांग नंबर 2, 3 काले कानून और समर्थन मूल्य दोनों पर ही हमारी मांग है
जी,
और समर्थन मूल्य उसमें से गायब है
जी
3 कानून।
जी जी जी। मैं एक कमेंट ले लूं, राम कुमार वालिया, आपको मेरी आवाज आ रही हो तो आपने कक्का जी को सुना, आप क्या बोलेंगे?
जी
राम कुमार वालिया, आप मेरी आवाज सुन पा रहे हैं?
हेलो, आवाज नहीं आ रहा है मुझे।
Okay, we'll try to fix this connection, but thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us. So there is a discussion on democracy, or whether there is democracy or not. Amid all of this that is happening in the national capital, let's pause and think about those protesting farmers who are going to complete 1 month of their protest at the Singhu border. We're stopping for a short break at this moment. When we come back, the other big story and an important story, the future of the retrospective tax fix. It's a fix because now this is the second big litigation, second big case, arbitration case, which India has lost. What are the legal options? And going ahead, see, the world is going to view how India is going to respond to this case. Investors the world over. What should be the appropriate response? Back in a moment. So welcome back. You're watching Left, Right and Center now for a very important story. So an arbitration that India lost. This is the Kane arbitration case. Now this has also resulted in a retrospective tax fix. And to understand a story like this, because for many this will be an extremely complicated story, but it's very, very important. So let's explain how the Kane case unfolded. So Kane India is a company which listed on the Bombay Stock Exchange in 2007. Let's go full frame so that you can see those graphics. January 2007. Then in December 2011, Vedanta completed the acquisition of 58.5% in Kane India from Kane PLC for $8.7 billion. In January 2012, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Vodafone in the 2 billion tax case, that famous case if you recall. In March 2012, the government introduced what is now known as the infamous retrospective tax amendment in the finance bill. Why did the government do that? And we are talking about the UPA government, mind you. This is March 2012. In January 2014, the IT launches a retrospective tax probe into transactions undertaken prior to an IPO. Then in March 2015, Kane PLC commenced international arbitration proceedings against the Indian government because they felt that this is not correct. In December 2018, the hearing was concluded in that case. Now let's tell you what exactly is the ruling in this case. The ruling in the international court, an international arbitration tribunal, has ruled that India's tax claim was not valid. The case was ruled by a 3-member tribunal. The tribunal also comprised of a judge appointed by the Indian government. The ruling says, and I quote, and this is significant, that India's claim of 10,247 crore rupees in past taxes is not a valid demand. Now let's quickly move to what the Cain, this company, has said. What have they said in their statement? Cain on the tax blow to India. They say that the tribunal ruled unanimously that India breached its obligations on Cain. Now that's a very, very significant point that Cain makes, hoping that they will get their money back. They says the tribunal has awarded Cain damages of $1.2 billion plus interest and costs, and damages will now become payable. Let's now get you the Indian government, what the Indian government is saying on Cain's arbitral victory. What does the government of India say? They say, as of this moment, tight-lipped because studying, they say, we'll study the award in arbitration case in all its aspects carefully in consultation with its counsels, which of course is the right thing to do as of this moment, having lost this case. They also say, and I quote, after such consultations, the government will consider all options and take a decision on further course of action, including legal remedies before appropriate fora. Now, why does this case come about? Why does the Indian government feel that it has legal options to explore? Let's quickly tell you what is retrospective taxation for you to understand where is this problem coming from. So, I'll ask the producers to pull up the graphics on what is retrospective taxation. So, retrospective tax allows a country to pass a rule on taxing certain products, items or services. It charges companies from a time behind the date of which the law is passed, which means that if, say, such a law is passed today, then this law itself will allow the country to tax a company not from today, but retrospectively. Now, this many countries feel, or many companies operating in different countries feel, that this is not fair. Countries use this route to correct any anomalies in their taxation policies. Now, India is not the first country, by the way. Apart from India, the US, UK, Netherlands, Canada, Belgium, Australia, Italy have retrospectively taxed companies. So, we are not the only ones. And last, what are India's legal options, you ask? Let's put those graphics on screen. What are India's legal options? The legal option is to appeal or not in a court of Netherlands. That is legal option number one. The government is appealing against the Vodafone award, by the way. And the centre may also appeal in this case, in the case of Cain. What exactly is this fix, and how do lawyers look at this, and what is in their wisdom, the correct way forward? I want to introduce Anuradha Dutt. She is the counsel for Vodafone, and we also have Arvind Datar, counsel for Cain Energy. Thank you very much, the two of you. Mr. Datar, let's begin with you. We've given an explainer because you do realize that for the common viewer, and me too, this is a very complicated story, right? So it's important to understand what retrospective taxation is. Why is it becoming a problem, particularly in the cases of these companies?
Retrospective taxation in any country is a problem. For example, in the Cain case, the transactions took place in 2006. At that time, what was done was perfectly legitimate. There was no tax on the transactions in 2006. Now, 2012, the Vodafone judgment came, and that was a case where they said that if shares are transferred by non-residents outside India, there will be no liability to tax. Now, that was changed retrospectively, and they said that even if shares of foreign companies are transferred, India will get the right to tax under certain circumstances. So this was the law made retrospective from 1/4/1962. And they applied this retrospective law for Cain as well, because even in the case of Cain, transfer of shares took place in the UK, and they tried to tax those transfers in 2014, which had taken place in 2006. Now, when that took place, then Cain, which is from the United Kingdom, and we have got a bilateral investment treaty between India and the United Kingdom. So under Article 3 of that treaty, there is an obligation of both countries, not only India, but even the United Kingdom, that any investments made by an Indian in the UK or by a UK company in India will be treated fairly and equitably. And if you don't treat it fairly and equitably, it will be a violation of the treaty. And that's what the tribunal held, that amending the law retrospectively is completely wrong. I mean, just take a simple example. Today, suppose an Indian, a subsidiary of a UK subsidiary of an Indian company enters into transactions which are perfectly valid, there is no tax liability. And just imagine if in 2028 or in 2030, UK changes the law retrospectively and says, sorry, what you did in 2020 is now taxable. So pay the tax with interest and penalty for a period of 10 years. So that's where the problem arises.
Okay. Okay. We have Mr. Mukesh Bhutani, also senior partner BMR and Associates, along with Anuradha Dutt. Mr. Bhutani, what is the rationale that has been presented by governments? I'm not just talking about the Indian government when this law was introduced, but governments the world over. We're not the only country.
Well, I don't know whether there is any rationale by way of an official statement available by the government of India. One can merely speculate that the government would be, on one hand, concerned with its sovereign power, which is the power to legislate a tax law retrospectively, right or wrong, fair or unfair, moral or otherwise, versus the obligation that it has under public international law towards a convention in general. And here it is the Bilateral Investment Treaty Convention. So, at least based on reading the operative part of both the arbitral awards, it seems that besides holding that there was unfair treatment accorded to the respective investors, Netherlands in case of Vodafone and UK insofar as Kane is concerned, at least in the Vodafone order, it appeared that the government directed that the retrospectivity part of the law was something that was unfair as well, insofar as the investor rights are concerned. Now, we all know that the law went through a tremendous amount of debate and it attracted a lot of criticism for India. But the fact is that under the constitutional framework, there is a right for the Parliament to legislate a law.
True, absolutely.
Application, and that power goes beyond the power of the
absolutely.
Judiciary as well.
You know, I just want to broad base this a little, Ms. Dutt, before I come to you. See, the Vodafone case of which you were a counsel, and now the Kane matter. Do you think international investors are going to very keenly watch what India's response is going to be?
So I think international investors were quite stunned in 2012. As I have said before, that when an investor decides which country they want to invest in, they see whether there is a legal certainty, tax certainty, and a rule of law.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, India has violated all these in the Vodafone case, and as a result of the retrospective amendment, there are other so-called victims like Kane Energy. So, I would also like to say that, you said that all over the world, every country has the power for retrospective amendment, which is absolutely right. But there is not a single instance where a new law was imposed retrospectively. Even India has brought about retrospective amendments for last how many decades, but it was always either two high courts were giving different views, so an amendment was brought to clarify, or if a Supreme Court gave a view where they have collected taxes and they don't want to give back the taxes, so they bring a clarificatory amendment. It's the first time that you introduce, at least in India, first time they introduced a retrospective amendment to bring out a new tax, because the Supreme Court clearly said in Vodafone case that this is a policy decision. You've not got, amendments to the Income Tax Act to bring about such transactions through tax. Please bring them in future. Sure. But what the country does is, our country does is brings it retrospectively for closed transactions.
For closed transactions. Okay. And that does not do well or augur well with investor confidence. Mr. Datar, my final question to you.
No, and in fact, just 1 second. In England and in Australia, they brought retrospective amendments, but then they grandfathered the cases which courts had decided in favor of an assessee.
Sure, sure. Mr. Datar, my final question to you. First of all, I know you would hope that the government clears the dues, but the point is, the government too says that it has its legal options. Realistically speaking, do you see any closure on the issue of retrospective tax, unless of course the law itself is repealed, which obviously the government is no mood of doing? Is this a long legal battle even now?
No. Now there is an appeal in the courts of Netherlands because the arbitration seat was Netherlands. I don't know how long the Dutch courts will take to decide the appeal, but there is one round of appeal and that's it, and then that will decide the fate of the case ultimately. So I don't see a much more delay, maybe a couple of years more. I don't know how much is the pendency in the Dutch courts as far as appeals are concerned. Yeah. And only on talking on sovereignty, which Mr. Bhutani just mentioned.
Yeah.
Every country has a sovereign right to tax. Nobody disputes that. But when you enter into a treaty, you surrender partly your sovereignty. India and UK both promise that though they have the sovereign power to tax, they will ensure that the taxes are fair and equitable. And if they are not, then either company can bring proceedings against the other company. And here the main problem of retrospective taxation. There's an old case between Russian investors and Mongolia. The taxes were increased hugely. And the tribunal said as long as they're prospective, it's okay. But if it's retrospective, then there is a serious problem. Because you bring in complete legal uncertainty.
Sure.
You see, the past becomes uncertain.
Sure. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Datar, Ms. Dutt, as well as Mr. Bhutani for joining us on this discussion. That's all the time we have in this edition of Left, Right and Centre.